All right, thank you. I presented last year a little bit about my curriculum that I developed. So today I'll present to you a brief overview of that just for context and then sort of where I've gone with it. And this was a year of just sort of having to shift and change and surf the waves of the pandemic. So it went in different directions, sort of ended up going back to what it began with. But so I'll sort of present to you sort of the current status of the curriculum and how I've applied more of the caring science language. I'm really working on my Caritas literacy. So if I sometimes read, it's really, I'm trying to be more comfortable with speaking that way. And this has really molded me to sort of speak up in hospital meetings about, no, we're not the work group that supports a low intervention environment. We're the work group that talks about and share, an environment that for caring, healing, and nourishing modalities for labor and birth. Just a little bit for those of you that don't know where I work work at Women and Infants Hospital. I'm the director of midwifery. We have 30 midwives, 90 physicians, 32 OBGYN residents, 39 family medicine residents. We have 700 nurses that work at this hospital. We take care of women throughout families throughout the lifespan, oncology, reproductive endocrinology, all the subspecialties. And it is a freestanding women's hospital, so it's sort of unique in today's world. We're the major affiliate for Brown University, so my teaching appointment is with Brown Medical School. We aren't affiliated with the School of Nursing, unfortunately, but there's plenty of opportunity to do that. My group we're the Division of Academic Midwifery, so we work with the next generation of healthcare providers. We teach, we mentor, we take care of our OBGYN residents. We midwife them. They refer to us as their fairy god midwives. So it's a very nurturing relationship we have with them, and they're very open to a lot of what we have to offer. We work closely, this of course is pre-COVID in interprofessional teams, but that's a midwife in the middle. So there's just frequently a midwife sort of really helping to lead the team in a sort of a, I'm trying to get the word for it, a very discreet sort of way. We do like to have lots of discussions that this is board rounds. This is also pre-COVID, because we really do believe that everybody on the team, oops, hold on, my battery is running low. So let me just quickly plug this in so I don't lose you guys. Hold on. Okay, sorry. For the Presence Power team, we have a team that helped me with the curriculum once I developed it, and it's a doula and a wellness specialist, one of our nurse educators, and a wonderful simulation specialist who also happens to be a comedian and an actress. This all began with a Healthy Birth Initiative, the Reducing Primary Cesareans Collective. I was able to show the hospital with all our data that our quality measures for both our C-section rates, our physiologic birth rates, our breastfeeding rates were really out of kilter with what other hospitals were doing. So this sort of gave them the data that they needed to say, yes, please help us solve this problem. So what I developed, I sort of later learned, was more of a Caritas-informed labor and birth care. And that nurses really are the leaders of the birth teams, and to work on their communication, how they connect with their community, how they connect with team members, and to bring heart-centered care to the team is very, very important. So back in 2000, there was a really important study on one-to-one nursing support in labor and birth that unfortunately showed that labor and delivery nurses have so many tasks that their one-to-one presence is not the same as something like somebody like a doula, somebody that doesn't have all these tasks to do. So what I wanted to provide the nurses with was a way of learning all the techniques so that they could experience them and experience the feeling of being cared for. So, you know, this was all an experiential learning expedition where we used, you know, comedy and improvisation to learn how to develop immediate rapport, how to recognize when there's bias present in a safe way. And then we integrated this specific caring and healing modalities on how to promote comfort. And nurses, of course, love to learn hands-on techniques, so they love this part of it. We brought in our spiritual care department to lead them in yoga and self-care strategies. This is our lead minister, Caroline, doing a code lavender for the nurses and giving them healing touch. We continue to teach them other ways to care for and heal for different labor pain. And we taught them how to incorporate all of them into practice. And we utilized members of the community. We had about 19 different instructors that were doulas, that were wellness people, Reiki masters, just that came in and really connected with our nursing team. We taught them mindfulness techniques, and then on the left here, we actually have who used to be the chair of our department, who's now, she's the CEO for ACOG, so that's the #1 effort. So it's great that she was so supportive of this. ACOG did put out a bulletin 2 years ago on, you know, how to provide low intervention care. But we taught the nurses simple massage techniques to give on one another. And then some other techniques to really facilitate mobility and all of these techniques in labor. And then sort of a fun sort of game-based review in teams. And we really incorporated this throughout the hospital. This is our emergency department. They love getting a tea for the soul or a code lavender. That's one of our housekeepers. I'm giving her a massage. And we were able to show the hospital that after 2 years of, you know, we educated 325 nurses and some physicians on this, that we were actually decreased our length of stay by 2 hours because communication was improved. We decreased our C-section rate by 6%, and we actually decreased our epidural rate in first-time moms by 25%, which really helped with the length of stay, so that women were getting the appropriate pain technique for what they needed to cope with labor at that time, which actually really helped a lot of different movement in the hospital, which is a big deal in a hospital like ours. Just so you have a little idea of how big we are 80% of women in Rhode Island give birth at Women and Infants. So that's 8,500 to 9,000 women per year. We see about 30,000 women in our emergency department every year. So obviously length of stay is a big deal in a hospital like ours. And then after all this, we had a cafe-style debriefing and reflection to find out what was important to them. What was important to them were very similar concepts to Watson's Caring Science Theory: equanimity, being the person that you want to be, you want to showing up for people, setting a good example, mentorship, and promoting an environment that helps healing at all levels. So originally with this project, I had planned to end it with an in-person all-day symposium to talk about caring, nourishing, and healing modalities for mothers, babies, families, the state of the art and the science. And in-person stuff just is not happening quite yet at our hospital. So we had to, I was going to use local and national experts for that and work with some community partnerships that I had developed, in particular, a group called Mom Unity. In addition, we also got a $20,000 grant from the New York City Department of Health to collaborate with Montefiore Hospital, which is in the Bronx, to bring this program to them. So what happened last March is that all our childbirth and parenting education programs closed down. And that left women, I think, even more anxious than they were beforehand. So the other thing that was happening that was very distressing to me was the creation of policies that were not evidence-based and that really strove to separate moms and babies that were suspected with COVID. And, you know, I know anybody in psychology knows that maternal infant attachment, it's one thing if mom is sick, parent is sick, but if they're not, you know, the World Health Organization had some very good information on COVID and breastfeeding, and the hospital and the CDC, our national organizations, were really ignoring that. And it was so fear-based. And I thought, well, you know, I talked with my community groups and we said, let's just do our own thing, independent, and just bring information to the community. So we did our first virtual health education in May, and lo and behold, we had over 200 families show up. It was for 3 hours, the whole panel. We had national experts that had written books that just donated their time. And I would answer, so we did this every month, sometimes twice a month for the next 10 months. I would literally sit in the chat and answer 100 questions each time. We even had the director of our emergency room, who at the time was pregnant. People were very afraid of our emergency room. We had a maternal death there 2 years ago. We did a tour, a virtual tour. Everybody could tell that she was pregnant, and then she sort of really talked about that work-life balance, and she was vulnerable. She cried, and she talked about how difficult it is being pregnant during a pandemic, and people they felt so connected. The feedback we got from that was just really, really incredible. We realized that hospital-based education is very provider-centric. It really doesn't do a lot for patients. It doesn't really teach them how to utilize resources. It doesn't give them confidence. It curates anxiety. So we really decided that the uncertainty and fear of the pandemic was really exacerbating disparities. It was widening the gap in maternal and infant outcomes, and we really wanted to create a model that provided families with the knowledge of how to utilize resources, the confidence to use them, and to move forward. So we developed a new model that we hope promotes confidence, resilience, and agency, working with doulas, working with education. And we're working with the psychology department at Brown. We have a grant out to study this. And that's just like the aside that came from all this. The other thing that I did with, I did the Caritas coaching program, was that I took a group of 4 nurses and 3 doulas and a nursing student, and we developed sort of a loving, compassionate simulation of team-based care for birth. We had a diverse group of providers that have given input into this, and we think of it as an iterative sort of simulation that will continually get feedback, both from patients, from different members of the team, such as doulas, and from team members about how they feel. Something that a wonderful mentor did for me when I first started, attending births, she really made me pause once the baby was born and safely in the parent's arms, and she said, just take a moment and enjoy this. And so I say that, let's take a moment. This is sacred. Let's enjoy it. Maybe we only have 30 seconds to really enjoy it, but let's honor this moment and let's watch this baby. Let's try to promote an undisturbed crawl to the breast so that the baby can latch on, and let's just enjoy that we're really present for something incredibly sacred. And this can be carried out in both normal and complex birthing situations. Birth is a very vulnerable time for women, and they should be able to trust that no matter what is happening with their bodies, that their providers will be respectful, that their dignity will be upheld, and that they can emerge from the experience. It can be transformative, and as well as for the team members. I mean, I still cry at every single birth, and I'm not ashamed of that. I love it. I think it's, I don't think it's old that no two births are the same. So I like to share that with people. So the way we developed the simulation was that I took time with these nurses and with the doulas, and I introduced Watson Caring Science theory and all the processes of care. So we always took a moment at the beginning to do centering and sort of a little bit of self-care. That's a nurse. We, introduced aromatherapy inhalers to all the nursing staff on sort of how to use them, but also sort of like how, like this is in a simulation. There's a nursing student and the education specialist just really taking a moment to enjoy the maternal infant attachment process. I found that the learners all felt like the caring theory and the processes were intuitive. It was not a difficult sell. They wanted to learn it. They actually studied. I had them go to the website, which the new website looks awesome, by the way, and look at all the processes and sort of like meditate on one before they came in, and to think about them as we integrated the fabric techniques and massage into the care. We actually developed a video of all of this, and then we have 10 different videos on the micro caring practices that are not quite refined, but this is all also getting ready for our work with Montefiore. And then of course, in the end, sort of in the number 10 is opening to attending to the spiritual dimensions of birth. So can we do what we're doing at Women and Infants and replicate it in a different setting? Of course, we have not really been able to go there in person. I took an in-person trip there in February because what we did with them is we said, okay, we can take the beginning of Presence Power and we're going to do it virtually. And the beginning of Presence Power is connecting you to what brought you to healthcare. And everybody's got an incredible story about what brought them. And I'm glad that we talked a little bit about the ethics of face and how difficult some of the virtual stuff can be with this. We went through all of them. We did like 8 sessions of just that and sort of introducing the techniques. We felt like when we debriefed on it, it was less powerful than doing the whole thing in a day where we spend the whole day. We start with the introduction. We go into the appreciation for what people do, and then into the techniques, which is really the transformational learning piece. So what I'm going to be doing with them is doing a grand rounds to present the evidence behind this because they're mostly physicians and they want to know. They're very excited about the respectful birth simulation, and we're going to bring all the techniques to them in person in 2 days of workshops in the fall. So we'll see. And they've gone through their IRB and are going to be looking at its effect on the care that they give, their C-section rate, their patient satisfaction scores, but they're also looking at the work environment and how the relationships are. So, that'll be, I can report next year on how that's all going. But that's the meat of what I did. It's there's a lot more work to be done. I do think that Watson Caring Science theory is very intuitive to most people. The one thing that people in the Bronx said is that they weren't as sold on self-care. So that was, we're going to have to get together in person, I think, for them to understand that. And maybe it was the Zoom, that was not quite as compelling to them, but we'll see. We're going to have to sort of ride with that and see what happens when we do the full in-person workshop this fall, which it looks like they're going to let us do. So, questions? Thank you.
Questions or comments or feedback to Liz is very special, amazing project.
I just have to give a big shout out to my Caritas coach, Lynn Wagner, who really is holding to me to the Caritas literacy in the language, which I'm, you know, I think she gasped one day when I said the word onboarding, you know.
Right, good.
So horrified with me. So yeah, no, it's been, I feel really blessed that I had her as my coach, and will continue to have her as my coach.
Great, fantastic.